Well, hello again. Welcome to my studio. Maybe you can pan that a little bit each way. So this is where I work and play and see my patients and put together classes, and it's all good. So this is the second video in the series of Fluidity, Power, and Release. And these are just the add-ons to the first video that's entitled Fluidity, also on YouTube. What we did on Sunday was really dive into feeling our deeper being. And we used as an anchor a lot of sensation and calling in this psoas muscle. So sometimes it's really nice to just look at a picture of the way it attaches to the lumbar spine and then goes behind all of your organs, sneaks out over the edge of the pelvis and attaches on the inner thigh. So that you can, pull up a picture of that on, on the internet if you want to look a little bit more closely. But what we know, what we're going to be using a lot as we call on it is that, especially on the out breath, it actually snugs up closer to your spine. And this is what creates that subtle, awesome core stability that we were able to feel. When it does that, it calls in a lot of other muscles, more of the cylinder, the transversus abdominis, the pelvic floor, the multifidus, the inferior serratus, the quadratus lumborum. I mean, it goes on and on, but we're going to focus on this deep muscle to call in our power. We did a few things though to add on to the fluidity things we didn't have time for in February. My list here so I don't forget. One of the things that we did right off the bat is that not only did we stretch psoas, which we had done on the roller in February. Remember, we did a lot of lengthening of the big muscles that attach the legs to the pelvis, and so this was the way that we stretched the psoas. But what we did this time was, while we were in this shape with the hips up on the roller, for the first time we felt deep to see if we could do a little massage of the psoas, which is entirely possible, especially if you start from the outside and work your way toward the midline. After a while, when you've done this, you'll be able to feel what areas might need a little bit more attention that are tight. It's good to do both sides, even if just one side is tight, because it stimulates and awakens. You don't have to have your hips up on the roller. You could just be right down here working. But doing the hands-on work is just a fabulous way to give yourself some love and really start to feel into the territory. We learned two other ways that you can do some loosening up of the psoas. It's super helpful to have it loose before you ask it to try and do something as far as power goes. This was one tool we learned to use. These are available. The link to this is on my website, where you can purchase one of these from Amazon. It's called Coregeous Ball, and it's a halfway inflated Pilates ball. And you can learn to roll around deep in here in the core, massaging not just the psoas, but the organs as well, maybe veering off to one side or the other and hanging out there. And usually if you find something that's tight, if you can hang out there on that one side, curl the toes under and lengthen out through the femur, that's really useful to just relax and let go. Now, if you're using that and you're feeling like, ooh, I wish I could go deeper, these double tennis balls will be your deepest companion, because they will go in and massage in the front. In the workshop coming up in April, we're going to be using these for the back body, but we used them on the front body this time by lying right below that last rib and then working our way all the way down to the pubic bone. And it looks something like this, but of course the way that you make it up will be even better. Just kind of wiggling myself on my forearms and letting that tennis ball work its way all the way down the psoas on either side. So, little ways to really massage deeply in there. We also used, well, after we did that, it usually feels really good after you release psoas to work with a bit of either a rotation, where one leg is straight and the other one is really bent up. And so for many people, they would be feeling a psoas stretch on the left side when they do that. If you don't feel that and you want a good stretch on that psoas after you've worked it, getting those hips up on the roller like I showed before and having one leg straight will give you a good stretch. Arm up overhead, even better. Or of course, we've always got the stretching into a runner's lunge. Something like this. Just looking for length through that deep muscle group. After we get that, good length, good mobility, nice and fluid and released, then we played a little bit with stability and just barely gonna touch the surface. This is something for you to explore on your own. If you have a Pilates ball like this, something unstable, it makes it come alive pretty fast because just getting yourself situated on the ball and not wobbling is, you're starting to work here. But the work is exhaling, really allowing that psoas to come to center. You can work with just that every exhale. Psoas snugs up to the spine. Toward the end of that exhale, if you're able to pick up one foot and not wobble, that's the call. And that not wobbling is going to come the better that you kind of snug up that psoas to center. Usually the two sides are very different. I'm weaker on this side. Ooh, it takes a lot more concentration for me to do that. If that's simple, you could work your way into some leg extensions. If that's easy, you might think about doing this and maybe some of this. You can do this without the ball, exact same way. It's a little bit more of a stretch to really feel it. You have to bring your focus to the sacrum and really hold steady and not allow yourself to do this. Wobble on that sacrum. Another nice way to call on that stability is just to lift up in a bridge. Hold that bridge. Every exhale is an opportunity to draw the psoas to center. You might even think at the end of the exhale, oh, what would it be like if I picked up one foot? Watch what happens when I pick up this foot. I fall down. So when I work on that, I don't actually pick up the foot. I just exhale, draw things to center, and think about picking up the foot, and that's plenty of work. So good ways to activate in here. There's so much more you can do, but that's a good start. So activation and toning and really feeling our sense of power here. We used that, of course, and then went into the dance with that. This video is just the stuff we did with the rollers and the balls. We also released around the hip. We had already released around the shoulder blade. That's on the other video. But around the hip, there's 3 areas that really appreciate your attention. Right at the waist, which is above the pelvic bone. You can rock back and forth with any kind of ball. You can use one of these spiky balls. You can use a tennis ball, a handball, whatever you find. And then everybody loves being in here. And then another place that we visited was in sitting, rocking over to the sit bone, putting the ball outside of the sit bone, pressing into the hands and feet, and then allowing yourself to sink into the deep rotators there. Ooh, that's juicy. And you can just move around a little bit and see what you find in there. In releasing the hips, people really love the double tennis balls. They put one ball on the tailbone, the other ball on the upper sacrum, and then they work with just gliding back and forth like this. That's another way to release in those hips, thinking about hip release. Of course, after this, we got up and danced and moved our hips all around. You can certainly do that at home. These are the loosening up and power techniques. The other way that we learned to use the tennis balls, in terms of, we had already learned how to release the shins on the outside, but we learned how to use a tennis ball like this to roll and release the shins on both sides, the outside and the inside, to address some of the problems that we have in the feet. And then of course, just like in the other video, it's super useful to do a stretch where you curl those toes under. Also worthwhile to see if it's possible to sit back on the heels and get a good stretch in the front of the ankles. If that's doable, you might even lift up the knees and get more of a stretch in front of those ankles. Okay. Okay, we're coming close to the technique stuff that we did. The only other thing that we did, and this was pretty unique, we stood up, we took the tennis balls with us. We really felt Tadasana, right? This sense of, wow, how do I stand? Find that deep core support, especially on the out breath. And then take that into the world. We talked about walking with it, dancing with it, One of the ways that we found is a super good reminder about using that core when you're moving and walking. This is a little odd, but you take those balls and you bring them right up against the perineum. And by holding the balls in there, especially on the out breath, you stay activated. And so it's perfectly, totally doable to have these balls in here and be dancing or be walking, you name it, but you have to be active in the core to hold the balls in place. Every out breath is a new opportunity to find that psoas and snug it up to center. So think about getting it soft, getting it long, and then activation of the core to really find your power in expressing yourself from this place. So I look forward to seeing you again in April. See what you can get done at home with video 1 and video 2, and we will really work with release in this next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.